So, guys, in your first semester of graduation, you will be greeted with this chapter of History of English Literature in your first class. That is the Old English or Anglo-Saxon literature. So, in this video, I'll discuss this literature and this period, and it will be helpful for exam preparation or even any other competitive exam or pub date. Okay, so let's get started. Now, I'll start off with the historical background. Now, who are the Anglo-Saxons? So, Anglo-Saxon are the people who inhabited the Great Britain from the 5th century. They are the outsiders. So they invaded England during 5th century, and the original people, the indigenous people, were known as Britons. Okay, so they were divided into three categories that are Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. Jutes are were less in number, and the majority of them Angles and Saxon. That's why it's they are known as Anglo-Saxon. Okay, so the land of Angles known as England. So it's also an important question that's often asked. That is, which three Germanic tribes invaded Britain in the 5th century AD, bringing with them the root of modern English. That is, the three groups of Anglo-Saxon, Angles, Saxon, and Jutes. So they were the dominant group in England or in Great Britain that we know today. So until the Norman conquest that happened in 1066 AD. So these people were pagan, so they didn't believe in Christianity. Now, who are the pagan? So pagan means those who believed in different gods. Okay, not on single god. So this term is a pejorative term, and it's applied to any unfamiliar religion other than Christianity. So those who do not have proper culture, so they are referred to as pagans. So like the tribal people. Okay, so even if you read the Sir Alex's poems of Crow Testament, so you'll understand that how the British spread the Christianity among the pagan tribal people. So they ruined the religion of the tribal people, and the Christian British, they viewed these pagan people as inferior. Okay, because they believed in different types of god. So this is also referred to as a pejorative or derogatory term. Now, Christianity started in this region in 597 century, and so with the advent of the Saint Augustine, so he came and he started preaching this religion. Now, literary characteristic of this period. Now, the language of these people, so the original people, the Britons, they were the English people. They speak in English language, but the Germanic people, they have their own Germanic tribal tongue. So what happened that these two languages got mixed up, and so new languages emerged. Now, in their literary culture, so the poetry was dominant. So prose didn't start at the outset, but it started when the Christianity became dominant. Okay, so they used caesura, caning, alliterative verse. Now, what is caesura? Caesura is a type of writing in poetry, that is a pause formed in line because of the rhythm of natural speak. Now, we say that sometimes when we speak because of a natural rhythm, it seems that we made a pause. Okay, for example, if I say, what do you think? Am I joke to you? Now, what do you think? Automatically we just take a pause, in our speak. So it happens automatically in poetry writing. So this is known as caesura. So Shakespeare, Winter's Tale, he used this type of caesura. So caesura could be divided into two categories: feminine caesura and masculine caesura. So when after a stress, the pause happen, the stress of a word, then it is a masculine. Similarly, when non-stress, unstressed word, the pause happens, then it will be feminine caesura. Caning is a type of literary device, that is when we use a compound or figurative phrase. That's if we say God's beacon instead of sun, or if we refer to sheep as sea street, or so this is known as caning. So we use in a roundabout way a figurative phrase instead of the direct way. Now, alliterative verse, that the repetitive sounds of a particular words or consonant. So if I say a crazy character constantly creating concoction in his head. So this is the it is repetitive sounds of C. So this is known as alliterative verse. Okay, so alliteration they used in their poetry. So these, and they also used four strong stresses in lines as well. So these are the literary characteristics of this period. Now important works. So if we take the poetry could be divided into three categories: heroic poetry, lyric poetry, religious, and Christian poetry. So I'll discuss the prose in later. Prose started much later, but poetry was so poetry mostly conveyed through oral transmission. Okay, so and so because of this the scope or the bards, those who used to roam around the countryside and sing or recite those stories or verses, so they are known as scope. If you see the Witcher series, and then you'll see there is a character Jaskier who is a bard. So he travels around the countryside and sings in pub, just to amuse people or to amuse any king. So those poets are known as scop or bards or minstrel as well. So they had importance in that society. So in heroic poetry we have Beowulf. You must have heard this poem's name. The Beowulf is epic poem. It has 3182 alliterative lines. Okay, so the whole poem is written in alliteration. Okay, so it talks about the heroic feats of a hero Beowulf who went to Denmark to help the king Hrothgar. So Hrothgar was a king of Denmark. So he made a hall named Herot that was traveled by a monster named Grendel, and Grendel was disturbed because of the jubilant noise of the hall, and it angered him, and he attacked and killed many people. So because of this, Beowulf started his journey to beat Denmark, and he fought the monster and killed barehanded. And later Grendel's mother came to seek revenge, and Beowulf killed her too. Okay, so after that, Beowulf returns home. He became a king and ruled peacefully for 50 years. Again, he had to fight with a dragon. He defeated the dragon, but it was a Pyrrhic victory because he sustained an injury on his neck, and because of that, he died. So this is the main storyline of Beowulf. So this is a heroic poem, epic poem. So remember there was a translation made by Tolkien, who wrote the Lord of the Rings. You all know. Now Walder is the fragments of a lost epic poem. Only around 60 lines we have. So it talks about the King Walter of Aquitaine. Fight at Finnsburg, and this heroic poem recounts a fight that takes place in Frisia between the Danish people and the Frisian and Jews. The Battle of Maldon talks about the Battle of Maldon that took place in 1991 between Anglo-Saxon and Vikings. So it was the invasion of Vikings that happened, and uh, and it has only 325 lines are extant because most of lines are lost. So in this battle, the English people failed to repulse the Vikings, and the Vikings won. The Battle of Brunanburh happened in 1937 century. It happened between English Anglo-Saxon led by King Athelstan and a combined force of Scots and Vikings. So Vikings were the barbaric and ferocious tribes. In there is also series of Vikings. You could see that. So the victory of English and Anglo-Saxon led to the formation of England that we know today geographically, and Athelstan is the first king of England. So Alfred Tennyson, the Victorian poet, he made a translation of this poem, The Battle of Brunanburh. Now, moving to lyric poem, The Wanderer and the Seafarer are most important poems. So you just get a hang of the summary of these poems, and that will be enough. So The Wanderer consists of 115 lines of it has alliteration. So it's an elegiac poem, so it's a lament for all the things and people that the speaker have lost. The speaker is a warrior who has had to go into exile after the slaughter of his lords and relatives in battle. Now he contemplates what the experience of the exile teaches him about. So it's also kind of wisdom poetry. So both the lament and elegiac in nature and wisdom in nature. Then the Seafarer, this is a poem of 125 lines that tell a story of a person who is in exile on the sea, yearning for home. And his seafaring is a metaphor also for the spiritual journey of the good, faithful Christian. Dear's Lament, it's an elegy poem of 44 lines and that talk about a scop or the bird who has been replaced by a rival after years of service to his lord. So it stresses on the loss, exile, and lamentation, etc. The wife's lament written in first person. So a wife living in exile, being separated from her husband, owing to the conspiracy against her by her kinsmen. So her relatives made a conspiracy against her, and she is separated from her husband, and she recounts her painful situation. Now the husband message, many also argue that it's also related to the wife's lament. So the speaker of the poem is a piece of wood. So the wood acts as a messenger, and it comes floating on sea and informs his wife how, because of a feud, he is divided from his wife, and now having wealth and power, he wants his wife join him in a new land. And the husband inscribed the message of reunion on this woodlock, and it came to her. So the here the piece of wood, it acts as a messenger, and it is the speaker in this poem also. So moving to religious and Christian poetry, so we have three writers. Those are Sigmund, Bede, and Synod. Now Sigmund wrote some hymns, those known as Sigmund's hymn. So he wrote on God. So he is also known as Anglo-Saxon Milton, as Milton wrote on God. So next, Bede write Ecclesiastical History of English people in 1731 AD, and this is a book on how Christianity developed in England. So it's him who also talked about the life of Sigmund. Now Sinulf or Sinulf, whatever you pronounce, he wrote four books, poems. So he's the first poet who also signed his name. So there is no doubt that these are written by any other poets. So those are Faith of the Apostles, Juliana, Christ, and Ellen. Now also there is another religious poem, and that's name is Dream of the Rood. So it's a Christian poem in which the narrator is having a dream, and in his dream he beholds a tree or a cross. So the rood means crucifix or the cross itself, so on which the Christ died, and the logs the rood has a monologue. So it recounts its experience in the crucifixion of Christ, the way Christ was crucifixed. Now moving to prose, so we have the one important person, that is King Alfred. So he was the king of Wessex, and he endeavored for the spread of education, especially in English. So he also made several books, translation into Old English from Latin. So he started the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. It's important for you to know that, which was published continuously for 300 years. So it talks about the historical records of Anglo-Saxon history. So there is also important question asked often, that's which British king, having defeated the Vikings invaders, consciously used the English language to create a sense of national identity and retain political control over independent country. That is King Alfred the Great. Okay, so this is the question. I hope you understood this period. So next we'll discuss the Norman conquest that happened in 1066. So this is a kind of most of the students finds this period, this literature boring, and so you don't have to read the original text of this story or poem. So you have to just so remember there is also some translation that the Seafarer was translated by Ezra Pound, the modern poet. So you could read those. So you have to, what you need to do, you just have to know the summary of these poems and some important aspects, and make your own study and your own notes. So that will be enough for you. So next in the, that's all in this video. I will meet soon in the next video. Thank you.